Her fork clinked against the plate when she said it. Wesley? Oh, he's just a friend. It didn't register at first. The room was loud. Champagne laughter, forks against porcelain, some groomsmen making a toast about love as a battlefield. But her voice? Crystal clear. Loud enough for the entire table. Tumbled like it mattered. I didn't move. Not right away. Just sat there, looking at the half-eaten salmon she used to pretend to hate. I wasn't wearing a tie. She always told me not to. Said it made me look too buttoned up. So I listened. And now I sat there, tie-less, dignity-less, at a table of strangers and one woman who used to memorize my coffee order like it was sacred. Just a friend. The man beside her shifted uncomfortably. His name was Vance or Lance or something else that sounded like money. She gripped his hand under the table like it was a trigger. He didn't look at me. No one did. I turned to her slowly. No smile. No words. Just eyes. Then, as if reading from a script I hadn't seen, I whispered, "Just an X," pushed back my chair, and walked away. No storming out. No scene. But behind me, forks froze midair. I exited through the side of the venue, past fake floral arches and string lights meant to look effortless. My shoes crunched gravel. The air smelled like someone else's idea of romance. Roses and burnt vanilla. I got into my car. Windows up. Keys untouched. Just sitting there in silence, trying to understand how someone you used to wash their hair in the shower with could strip you down to a label in front of 10 people and a cheesecake. 5 minutes. That's all it took. 5 minutes later, she was at the driver's side window, tapping. Barefoot. No heels. Mascara already starting to betray her. I lowered the window half an inch. She said nothing at first. Then she held up her phone and showed me a photo. And that's when I realized this night wasn't about the wedding. It was about everything she never told me. I stared at the photo for a solid 10 seconds before I even understood what I was looking at. Not because the image was unclear. No, it was sharp, focused, taken deliberately. But because my brain refused to register that the woman beside my car, still panting from her barefoot sprint, had the nerve to show it to me now. Here, after that table. It was a picture of me, taken months ago, mid-yawn on a couch, a blanket around my shoulders, a coffee cup in hand with M written in marker, hers. I looked like I didn't know I was being watched, like I didn't know I was being kept. And next to it, another photo, side by side. Him, Vance, or whatever name she whispered when she thought I was asleep. Same couch, same angle, same blanket, same coffee cup. I finally spoke. So what? You made him reenact my life? She flinched. No, Wesley, you don't understand. It wasn't like that. I laughed. I actually laughed. I don't remember the last time I laughed without feeling stupid immediately after, but that one came out sharp and natural. Bitter. Don't you understand? You told a table full of strangers I was just a friend. And now you're showing me your emotional scrapbook like this is a season finale? She opened her mouth to speak, but I rolled the window up halfway. Not all the way. Just enough to control the air between us. She hesitated. Then she did something so weird, so wildly off-script from every post-breakup cliché. I swear my chest physically tensed. She dropped her phone onto my lap. Unlocked. A message thread still open. Between her and Vance. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. The first message, from her, dated a week ago. You'll behave at the wedding, right? Then his reply. Depends. Is the stray dog coming? The next messages were worse. About me. Long rants. Dismissive tones. Mocking. Her defending me just enough to feel like a performance, but never enough to stop him. One stuck out. He was my comfort zone, not my future. I'll introduce him as a friend so he doesn't embarrass himself. I felt my heart drop so fast it could have cracked the car floor. When I looked back at her through the glass, she was biting her lip. Not flirtatiously, nervously. Her eyes flicked to the venue, then back to me. Wesley, I messed this up. I opened the door slowly, stepped out. We stood there, a few feet apart, headlights casting long shadows across the gravel. You didn't mess this up, I said. You erased me before I ever arrived. She started to say something else, maybe an apology, maybe a plea, but I walked past her, back toward the venue. Not to rejoin the wedding. No, to find someone else. Because 5 minutes earlier, I was a ghost at that table. But now I had something more valuable than closure. I had proof. And her best friend, sitting 3 tables away, had once told me, if she ever breaks your heart, Wesley, call me. I didn't have a plan. Just momentum and a bruised ego fueling my steps across the gravel back toward the venue. Somewhere behind me, Madeline stood frozen, still holding that ridiculous photo like it meant something. Like that was going to soften the blow of everything she'd already sliced apart tonight. But me? I was heading towards someone who used to look at me with curiosity. Someone who once whispered to me after a Christmas dinner that she'd never seen Madeline laugh the way she laughed with me. Someone who now sat at table 6, sipping from a flute of cheap, sparkling wine, twirling the stem with her fingers like she was bored to death by the whole affair. Delia, Madeline's best friend. Sharp-tongued, fashionably distant. A little chaotic in a way Madeline could never handle, which is probably why they stayed friends for so long. They balanced each other out like a wine stain on a white tablecloth. And yet, there was always something in the way Delia looked at me, especially in those last few months. Like she was watching a slow-motion train wreck and wondering when I'd finally realize I was the one bleeding. I waited for a break in conversation at her table, then walked right up. She raised her eyebrows. Not in surprise. In challenge. Well, if it isn't the emotional casualty of the evening, she said, not even trying to lower her voice. A few people chuckled. I didn't. I pulled out the chair beside her and sat down, quietly placing Madeline's phone in front of her. She looked down. The open message thread was still there, still glowing. She read it once. Then again. When she looked back at me, her expression had changed. Wow, she muttered. She really did that. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Delia picked up the phone and scrolled a bit further. Her nostrils flared slightly. It was her only tell. The rest of her face stayed statuesque, like a woman who's been burned so many times she keeps her own emotional fire extinguisher in her clutch. You know, she said softly, tilting the phone toward me. I told her once, if she wanted to date a personality quiz, she should go for Vance. He's got the emotional range of a BuzzFeed article. I nearly laughed. But instead, I said, he thinks I'm a stray dog. That made her pause. She blinked slowly, then shook her head. She downgraded herself. Not you. The whole table went quiet. One guy awkwardly excused himself. Another sipped his wine so fast he choked. But I didn't care. For the first time all night, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't just a friend or the ghost of boyfriends past. I was a man sitting at a table with truth in his pocket. And someone finally saw it. Delia handed me the phone. She doesn't know I know, she said, almost in a whisper. You want to play this smart? I want her to feel what it's like to be erased. She smiled. Not kindly. Not sweetly. The way someone smiles when they know something dangerous is about to begin, and they've been waiting for the invitation. Then sit tight, she said, reaching into her bag. Because when Madeline tries to spin this later, I want her to remember what it's like when I'm the one holding the mic. What are you doing? I asked. Delia pulled out her phone and tapped something on screen. Sending myself the messages. I'm not a monster, Wesley. I'm just tired of watching her get away with things like this and calling it growth. That's when we both looked up and saw Madeline standing at the edge of the venue patio, staring at us like she had walked in on a betrayal. But for once, it wasn't mine. She didn't march toward us. She glided, like someone who thinks anger is beneath them, like confrontation should come wrapped in grace. But her eyes? They were small flames, flicking between me and Delia like we'd committed some sacred betrayal by simply sitting near each other. Delia, Madeline said with a coolness she didn't even try to disguise. Can I borrow you for a moment? Delia didn't move. She sipped her wine, casually, like Madeline hadn't spoken. Then she looked at me and said, You want to go somewhere quieter? Madeline's voice cracked slightly. Excuse me. Delia turned slowly. I'm sorry, Mads. It's a bit hard to follow your sudden interest in me after ignoring every warning I gave you for the past 6 months. The entire table went quiet. Someone dropped a fork. Madeline's mouth opened, then closed. She wasn't used to being shut down, not in public. And especially not by Delia, the one person she always expected to orbit her like some loyal satellite. I think we need to talk, Madeline said again. This time softer, more human. Delia stood up, but not to follow her. She handed me her glass and said, Hold this, then turned to Madeline. You want to talk? Then talk here. With him. Since you so graciously called him a friend 5 feet from the man you replaced him with. I didn't mean it like that, Madeline snapped. Oh. Delia folded her arms. Then how did you mean it? Because from where I was sitting, it sounded like you downgraded someone who loved you, just to make your new guy feel taller. The whole patio felt frozen. Even the string lights looked like they dimmed. The DJ had stopped between songs, and now all you could hear was distant laughter from the wedding tent and the heavy breathing of three people who once shared dinners, secrets, and holidays together. I should have left. I should have walked away. But I didn't. I stood up too. Madeline, I said, trying to keep my voice steady even though everything inside me felt like a wrecking ball. Do you remember the last thing you said to me before you left? She blinked. You said, "You'll always be important to me, Wesley. I just need to find myself." I stepped closer. And today, you introduced me as a friend. Not someone who held your hand in the ER when your dad collapsed. Not the guy who sold his guitar to help cover your car repair. A friend. I panicked, she whispered. No, I said. You calculated. Delia put her hand on my arm, gently, grounding me. And Madeline, her face was shifting. Something behind the eyes was breaking apart. Not guilt. Not sadness. Fear. I didn't understand why until Delia leaned toward me and murmured, "She didn't just lie to you." What do you mean? Delia pulled out her phone, tapped something, then turned the screen to me. A series of screenshots. Conversations between Madeline and someone else entirely. A man neither of us had seen tonight. Dates. Hidden weekend trips. Emotional manipulation. Complaints about both me and Vance. Comparing us like products, like we were shelves in a store she wandered through when bored. I got these from her iCloud months ago, Delia said under her breath. I was waiting for a reason. And then it hit me. Everything. Madeline wasn't just cruel. She was strategic. She'd been collecting men like backup plans. I wasn't the ex she mourned. I was the safety net she quietly dismantled when she found a firmer one. Madeline's voice cut through the moment. You're both making this into something it's not. That's when Delia dropped the final blow. No, you did that. And if you don't leave this wedding quietly, I will forward every message, every photo, and every location tag you thought you deleted to your mother, who, by the way, is sitting inside, in pearls, and has no idea what kind of daughter she raised. Madeline's face went white. Her mouth opened, but this time, no words came out. She turned and walked away. No heels, no photo, no words, just silence. But that silence was louder than anything she'd ever said to me. And for once, I didn't feel small. I felt like I had just begun. That night, after I left the wedding and said a brief, stunned goodbye to Delia, I drove for almost 2 hours without even realizing where I was going. My hands were on the wheel, but my brain was somewhere else, replaying her voice saying, "Just a friend," over and over until it felt like a personal joke the universe refused to let die. I didn't cry. I don't know why. I think I was too empty. Like the hurt had burned through the emotional wires and left only this numb, flickering signal behind. When I got home, the first thing I noticed was that the apartment smelled the same way it always did. Stale coffee grounds, laundry detergent, and something faintly citrus from a half-dead candle she left behind. I should have thrown it out weeks ago. I never did. I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing the same wrinkled shirt from the wedding. I didn't even kick off my shoes. My phone buzzed. It was Delia. One message. Check your email. She's worse than we thought. I hesitated. I didn't want to keep digging. I felt like I'd already found enough wreckage for a lifetime. But something in me couldn't stop. I opened my laptop, logged in, and stared at my inbox. Delia had forwarded a zip file. No subject line. No explanation. Inside were dozens of screenshots. Not just texts, emails. Apparently, when Madeline borrowed my laptop 2 months before our breakup, she'd logged into her Gmail and never logged out. The backup was still there, still synced. And what I saw next, it shattered even the cynical, battered version of me that had walked out of that wedding. There were exchanges with a name I didn't recognize. Someone named Nathan. Emails going back nearly 8 months. That was 4 months before she told me she needed space. For months before the crying conversation on the balcony. For months before I begged her not to leave. The subject lines were nauseating. This weekend smirking face. He still doesn't know? Hotels booked, same room as last time. One email was dated on our 3rd anniversary. I remember that day. I surprised her with a dinner reservation, cooked her favorite breakfast, even gave her a handwritten letter I had stressed over for days. And she She had replied to Nathan from our living room while I was cooking her eggs. He made breakfast again. Cute, right? Too bad it doesn't make me feel anything anymore. I sat there, breath caught in my throat, staring at the sentence over and over like I was waiting for it to rewrite itself. But it didn't. Nothing does. The deeper I went, the more I realized she hadn't just cheated physically. She had been emotionally gone for a long, long time. With Nathan, with Vance, with others. Some messages hinted at things I didn't even understand. Meetings, planned moves, even a shared bank account. I clicked one attachment. A spreadsheet. Labeled Apartment Budget 2025. 2 names listed on the lease. Madeline Dunn and Nathan R. Kessler. I couldn't breathe. She was planning a future. Not just with someone else, but during me. While living in our home. While pretending to be confused. While feeding me lines like, I just need to find myself. She'd already found him. I closed the laptop, got up, and went to the living room. The candle was still there, the one she loved. Mandarin, cedarwood, and something else I could never pronounce. I picked it up, turned it over, and saw something I never noticed before. Carved underneath, in tiny lettering. For M and N. Toronto. Toronto? She told me she hated Toronto. Said it was too cold, too clean, too fake. I sat down, holding the candle in one hand, phone in the other. I didn't know what I was about to do. But I knew this. Tomorrow, I wasn't going to be the quiet, sad man in the background anymore. Because she wasn't the only one who made plans behind someone's back. And she definitely wasn't ready for mine. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I just sat there in the living room, lights off, watching headlights slide across my wall every few minutes like ghosts of the life I thought I had. My mind was a movie reel stuck on loop. Madeline's voice saying, just a friend. The emails with Nathan, the spreadsheet planning a future that had no room for me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it again. The hotel confirmation, the laughing emojis, the way she described me like I was an outdated appliance she forgot to throw out. Around 4:30 a.m., I opened the cabinet in the hallway. The one with all our paperwork. She always hated that I kept everything. You're too sentimental, she used to say, rolling her eyes as I slipped old receipts into manila folders. You treat trash like treasure. Well, guess what? Trash has timestamps. I found the folder labeled Lease Agreement 2023 to 2025. It was thick. Madeline didn't even read half of it when we signed. She was busy talking to the leasing agent about the balcony lighting and how much she hated carpet. I remembered every second, though, because I was the one who actually read it. I flipped to the part one was looking for. The clause I'd flagged in yellow and had made her initial without explanation because she was too busy scrolling Zillow listings on her phone to care. Clause 14. Early exit financial responsibility, co-tenant breach. Should one tenant vacate the property prior to lease end date without written notice and valid cause, e.g., abuse, job relocation, they forfeit all rights to security deposit, shared assets, and may be subject to financial penalties not exceeding 35% of remaining rent. There it was. Her exit. Her mistake. Her signature right underneath it. I'd paid the last 3 months of rent alone, assuming we were on a break and she might come back. I kept the apartment clean. I kept the utilities on. I even watered her succulents, like an idiot. And now? Now I had a legal anchor. By 7 a.m., I was standing outside a small office building on the east side of town, holding a box of documents and wearing the same shirt from the night before. Inside was an old friend of my brother's, Ellison Shaw. He wasn't a full-time attorney. More of a contracts and collections guy who ran his own one-room practice and ate soup out of mugs. I handed him the lease, the emails, the proof of her moving out without cause, and asked, "Can you build a paper trail?" Ellison stared at the files for 10 minutes without speaking. Then he said, "She owes you more than money, man. But yeah, I can make this ugly." I didn't want it ugly. I wanted it cold. Not rage. Not revenge porn. Not drama. Just precision. A few hours later, Ellison sent the first email to Madeline. Formal. Cordial. Lethal. Per the terms of your signed lease agreement and documented abandonment of co-residency, please find attached the breakdown of financial restitution owed. Failure to respond within 10 business days will result in formal collection proceedings. See attached. She didn't respond for 6 hours. Then came the text. "Madeline, are you serious? After everything? You're making this legal? I stared at the screen. I waited. Then I replied with 4 words. You broke the contract. She didn't text back. Not for the rest of the day. But I wasn't done. Because while Ellison worked on the financial side, I was working on something else entirely. Delia and I had kept talking since the wedding. Not romantically. Just 2 people who had both been toyed with, both tired of keeping quiet. She sent me a voice memo the next night. Only 4 seconds long, but it lit a fire I hadn't felt in months. She's planning to move in with Nathan next week. Apartments already furnished. So I called the building. Posed as a utility provider. They confirmed the unit, the name, Madeline Dunn. Co-signer, Nathan R. Kessler. They also confirmed one other thing. The lease required all tenants to disclose prior rental breaches. And thanks to Clause 14, she now had one. I emailed the property manager, attached all necessary documentation, and waited. By morning, Madeline's name was pulled from the lease. Delia sent me a screenshot from Nathan's story that afternoon. Him, holding a duffel bag. Caption, changing plans. Moving solo. No tag. No mention of her. Just gone. She hadn't just lost the apartment. She'd lost the future she thought she could leap into. And for once in my life, I didn't feel like just a friend. I felt like the storm she never saw coming. The knock came late. 9:42 p.m. to be exact. I remember the time because I had just reheated a bowl of frozen chili and was halfway through scrolling through a list of couch listings on Craigslist. Not for me. For her. Symbolically. At first, I thought maybe it was my neighbor again. The one who always locks herself out and borrows my phone like she's never heard of a locksmith. But when I looked through the peephole, I saw the shape I knew too well. The slouched shoulders, the coat she always said made her feel cinematic, the way she clutched her phone like a cigarette she didn't want to light. Madeline. She looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I had just grown tired of shrinking for her. I opened the door halfway, kept the chain on. Didn't expect you to actually show up, I said. She flinched at my voice. Like it surprised her. Like she thought I'd be angry, or emotional, or desperate for answers. But I wasn't. I was just done. Wesley, she started. Voice low. I need to explain. No, you don't. I cut her off. I think I've heard enough explanations from you to last a decade. She blinked. Her eyes were glassy. Not crying. Not yet. But right on the edge. I waited. I didn't know Nathan would back out, she whispered. And there it was. Not I'm sorry. Not I made a mistake. Just regret about the outcome. Not the choices. Let me guess, I said. He found out you lied about the lease history and didn't want his credit tied to yours. Silence. I didn't lie. You omitted, I said. Which is just a polite word for I hoped no one would find out. She tried to speak again, but I held up a hand. Don't, I said. You came here thinking what? That I'd let you in? That we'd sit on the couch and drink tea and talk about how it all went wrong? Her lip trembled. Finally, some crack in the performance. No, she said softly. I came here because I didn't know where else to go. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered the emails. The spreadsheet. The hotel confirmation. Her smirk at the wedding table when she labeled me as just a friend. So I did something that surprised even me. I stepped aside, but not to let her in, because behind me, someone else was standing in the hallway. Delia. She had come over earlier that evening to return some paperwork. Ellison needed my signature again for the next phase of the breach claim. We'd ended up sitting on the couch, talking. Just talking. 2 broken people laughing about terrible coffee and worse choices. When she stepped into Madeline's line of sight, the effect was immediate. Madeline's face collapsed into itself. You're here, she said, barely above a whisper. Delia didn't flinch. Funny thing, she said coolly. When you burn every bridge, sometimes the smoke leads back to the one person you always underestimated. Madeline's eyes narrowed. Are you sleeping with him? Delia smiled. Not amused. Amused people still care. No, she said. But I'm listening to him. Which, honestly, might be worse for you. That's when Madeline finally cracked. You 2 are pathetic, she hissed. This is what you wanted? Me humiliated? Me out on the street? I tilted my head. You wanted to be free, remember? That's what you told Nathan. That I was your past, and he was your launch pad. I handed her a folded envelope. She looked down, confused. What's this? The final itemization, I said. You owe $3,812 in rent share, plus legal filing costs. Ellison said he's willing to settle out of court if you pay in the next 10 days. Madeline didn't take it. She stared at the envelope like it was a live grenade. Delia stepped beside me. And if you're looking for sympathy, it's not in this building. We waited. For a second, I thought she might scream. Or throw something. Or beg. But she didn't. She turned. And walked down the hallway in that same cinematic coat, shoulders hunched, phone clutched, future dismantled. When I shut the door, Delia turned to me. You okay? She asked. No, I said honestly. But I'm getting there. And for the first time in months, I believed it. Because healing doesn't come with closure. Sometimes, it comes with a quiet door click, and the sound of footsteps walking away for good. A week passed. No more calls. No texts. No angry emails. Madeline vanished from my world like a bad dream fading in daylight. Delia said she'd heard Madeline moved into a month-to-month Airbnb on the edge of town, sharing a kitchen with two strangers who didn't even know her middle name. I didn't celebrate. I didn't throw a party or post anything online. I just sat in my apartment, one day at a time, watching it turn from our place into my place. I donated the throw pillows she loved, tossed the candles she left behind, rearranged the furniture, changed the locks, and one night, just because it felt right, I painted the wall behind the couch a deep navy blue. It was the first decision I made in that apartment that was entirely mine. Ellison messaged me the next morning. She'd paid. In full. No legal battle. No threats. Just a quiet wire transfer from an account that probably still had her and Nathan's names on it, even though his lease was so low now. I stared at the confirmation email for a long time, not because I was happy about the money, but because it felt like a receipt, like proof that I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't just a friend, that what she did had consequences. That evening, I went out. Not far, just the bookstore down the street. I hadn't been there in months. The old man behind the counter remembered me. You look lighter, he said. Like something finally snapped into place. I just painted a wall, I told him, and he nodded like he understood exactly what I meant. And then, as I walked back, the first raindrops hitting the sidewalk, my hoodie pulled up and my mind quiet for the first time in forever, I saw her. Delia, standing in front of my building with 2 coffees in a cardboard tray and a small paper bag. She smiled before I could say anything. You said you missed cinnamon rolls, so I brought peace offerings. I didn't know we were fighting, I said, taking the tray from her. We weren't, she replied. But sometimes people need a reason to show up, even if it's just for a pastry. We went upstairs. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. She sat on one end of the couch, I sat on the other. We watched a terrible movie and made fun of every scene. She leaned her head on the armrest. I leaned mine on the opposite. And for once, there were no questions. No wait. No masks. Just air. Real, breathable air. After she left, I stood in the hallway, staring at the closed door for a while. Not because I wanted her to come back, but because it was the first time someone left, and I didn't feel empty. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address, but the handwriting was unmistakable. It was from Madeline. 1 page. No accusations. No manipulations. Just 6 lines. You were always too good for me. I never said it because I thought if I admitted it, I'd lose control. But now I see. You were never mine to control. I hope you're okay. I hope you forgive me. And I hope someone finally loves you the way you deserved all along. I folded it once and slipped it into the back of my lease folder. Not because I needed it, but because sometimes closure comes after the war, when the smoke clears and you're still standing, a little bruised, a little wiser, but whole. So no, I'm not bitter. I'm not broken. And I'm not just a friend. I'm Wesley. And I'm finally free.